Good morning, everyone. It is a new dawn, it's a new day, and it's time for a new book. Today is Tuesday, November 14th, and as you would have seen, I did finish the Hunger Games book last night and watch the movie. And as I sat there and thought about it more once I finished the movie, I just kept thinking about more and more of the relations that I see to the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And it makes me curious as to how they're going to portray those things on screen that I'm thinking of specifically. And if they're going to add to it to kind of fill in some of these gaps that I'm noticing between at least the movies and the prequel. Because between the Hunger Games book and the movie, there is a lot that is added in. There are things that are in the movies that aren't in the book. And that is not a knock on the movie, because I do think that the big things that they added, stuff like having insight into the game maker's office, control center, I don't really know what it's called, but the room where they're like controlling things like the fire blaze and felling trees and, popping up the mutated dogs at the end, all of that stuff was not in the Hunger Games book at all. We don't really have that, third party, omnipotent kind of vantage point at any point in the Hunger Games book. It's all just in Katniss's head. And in the book, we're just following along and experiencing things as Katniss is experiencing them. And although that isn't really how the movie is set up, I do really enjoy the way the movie is set up. And I think it really does a good job of kind of foreshadowing who the real villain of this whole Hunger Games story trilogy is. And it's President Snow. And like I said last night, I think that Donald Sutherland does an amazing job as President Snow. He's such a good actor, and he's so good at really portraying that subtle evil, because a lot of times when President Snow has lines in the Hunger Games movies, he's not outright frightening, if that makes sense. He's not like outwardly threatening people or, yelling at them. He's not really violent outwardly, but he has so much power that pretty much all he has to do is just kind of allude to someone not winning his approval. And that is enough to terrify pretty much anyone that knows anything about President Snow. And I do remember when the movie came out, people being upset about all the differences between the book and the movie. And I think that's why I don't have a memory of really disliking it. And my personal memory of going and seeing the movie after reading the book is that they did a really good job. And I think that's because what they did change wasn't anything that was central to the main outcome of the story, except for the erasure of Katniss and Peeta's injuries/disabilities. That didn't need to happen. That could have totally stayed in. And I do agree on that one. That did not need to be taken out. But that is the only major change that I was upset about the first time and this time, because I feel like all of the other things that are added in are really helping build to the next movie. And that's kind of important when it's the opening movie of a big series, of a trilogy. And this is me just thinking like, a movie producer or someone who's trying to make a film series. You know that you're going to have the people that read the book interested in this series, but at the same time, you're also wanting to bring in some of those people that have not read the books, and you're going to want to keep them enticed and keep them engaged with the story, especially when, like with movies, there's a long time between the first installment of a series and the second installment of a series, at least pre-Marvel universe. Marvel just is in their own league and they be pumping out content like nobody's business. But with other film series like The Hunger Games, I can see why they needed to add in those other things to keep viewers engaged and keep them wanting to know what happens next. So yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I still think that it is a good adaptation, even though they added in other things, took some liberties with some stuff, changed some things. I still think that it's a great movie, and it is still up there for me as one of the better movie adaptations of a book. And from here on out, for the reread/rewatch, it's going to be a very interesting ride, because like I've said before, I finished all of the books in very quick succession, but the movies took years to come out. So by the time Catching Fire came out, I had already been done with the book for a very long time at that point, probably at least a year. I don't remember what year Catching Fire came out. It was probably like 2013, something like that. Actually, I can Google it. Let's Google it. Yeah, so Catching Fire came out a year later than the first Hunger Games movie. And if I'm honest, by that point, a lot of this book would have fallen out of my head, especially because at the time I was in high school / maybe even starting undergrad. So I had other books to read for class. So keeping this fresh in my mind was not top of my priority list. But this time around, I will be watching the movie right after I finish the book. If I can help it, I may have to watch it the next day because last night I was up very late trying to finish that movie, especially because I was pausing and like talking to the camera and trying to get my thoughts down when they were fresh in my mind. And so I was also like getting really sleepy and a little delirious towards the end. You could probably tell, just in the way that I was speaking, that I was very tired. So in the last couple check-ins that you saw while I was watching the movie, I had to physically like sit up and talk to you because I was fully horizontal on the couch. That's besides the point though. So the goal for today is I'm going to start reading this. So I'll probably start off with listening to it as I work when I can. And then after work, I do have some more stuff that I need to put away, some more stuff I need to unpack. And then once I am done with all of my chore type things and I'm ready to relax, we will sit down and do some more physical reading of this book. So yeah, that is my plan for the day. And I need to go ahead and get started with my work so that I can be in a good place for the rest of the week. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Alrighty, friends. It is later now. It is about 5 o'clock. I'm done with work for the day. I've logged off, turned off my computer, done a little bit of the miscellaneous chores around the house, but I have not started listening to this yet. I got my oven heating up right now. I'm gonna cook some chicken, throw it in a little salad for dinner. And while that is heating up / cooking, I'm just gonna turn on the audiobook and start this book. Don't know how far we'll get through today, but we'll read for a couple hours till we get hungry and then we'll have our salad and just chill out for the rest of the night. So we're gonna start this right now. Alrighty, friends. So I am done with my read for tonight. I made it to page 106, chapter 8. That's how far into the book I am. Goodreads says I'm 27% of the way done. And it's still like in the early part. They just got back from their little victory tour thing. And it's really just starting to heat up a little bit. There's been some talk about some uprisings going on in other districts. And Katniss just walked into the square to find Gale being whipped by their new head peacekeeper. So interesting things happening. I did have some interesting thoughts while I was reading through this. So I think I mentioned when I was watching the movie for the first Hunger Games book last night about how they took Madge out of the first movie. In the book, Madge is the one that gives the Mockingjay pin to Katniss as a good luck charm. And this, in the book, is the start of their friendship. And I don't remember the movies very much at all, really. So I don't remember if Madge shows up later and if they are still friends. I just feel like it's such a loss of a character because it's really Katniss's only long-lasting female friend for the series. Like, Madge is mentioned very early on in the first book. And although they're not like super close friends at that point, that is really the start of their friendship. And like by the time we get to Catching Fire, they are good friends. Like they hang out a lot because Gale goes and works in the mines. And so Katniss has a lot of free time that Gale is working because Gale works 12 hours a day in those mines and only has one day off. He has Sundays off and that's it. So Gale is very busy and that leaves Katniss with a lot of free time. And who else has a lot of free time? Madge, because she is the mayor's daughter and she doesn't have to work or do anything. She is like one of the most privileged people in this district and she just doesn't have much to do during the day. So they become good friends just from hanging out like that. And I just think it's kind of sad that they took away like Katniss's only other like real friend in this whole series. And it doesn't like really change much of the plot, really. It's just Like, I want her to have more friends, and she does have more friends in the book, but in the movies and stuff, they just really make it seem like the only people that she's friends with are Peeta, Gale, and Haymitch, if you want to count Haymitch. And then the other thought that I had was there's a whole scene where Katniss takes Gale to a lake outside of District 12 that her and her father used to go to. And she talks about how there are these like dilapidated houses and stuff around. And it got me wondering if this is the same place that Coriolanus and Lucy Gray Baird ran away to at the end of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Because once they decide that they're going to run away together and they head past the fence, which I'm led to believe is the same place that Katniss slips through the fence, and they go to a place that has a lake and houses. Now, granted, it's been like 65 years between then and what is happening currently in Catching Fire, but I still think that this is probably the same area, which is crazy because that means this is going to be kind of like spoilers also if you haven't read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But when Coriolanus is at this lake with these houses with Lucy Gray Baird, and he runs away with her because he's so concerned that the Capitol is going to find the gun that he used to murder some people with and punish him for it. That is what he's afraid of. That is kind of what makes him think that running away is a good idea. It's not because he's so in love with Lucy that he just wants to run away with her and build a new life. It's because he's trying to save his own skin. He doesn't care about anyone else but himself. It's all about what is advantageous for me. And as soon as someone doesn't serve him anymore, he flips a switch and they are immediately dispensable. And that's literally what happens at the end of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And if that is the same area, then at the bottom of that lake, that Katniss has all of these fond memories about, you know, going and hunting with her dad. She talks about like all of the foraging that they would do because it's a really bountiful area because of the lake. There's like waterfowls, there's Katniss roots that you can eat, and then there's also the eggs from the birds. So it's a very fruitful place to just go and get a lot of food at one time. So she has such fond memories associated with this very specific place, but it's also the place where President Snow fully starts down his evil path. And that's so interesting. And also the thought that at the bottom of that lake somewhere is a gun that Coriolanus Snow used to murder several people and questionably also murdered Lucy Gray Baird. So there's also low-key like a murder weapon nearby. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I mean, I would think that it's supposed to tie in like that. I would think that that would kind of be the whole point of having these two distinct scenes next to this lake. But it could also be a coincidence, I guess. I don't know. But I just thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so really enjoying so far. Nothing really much has happened yet in the start of this book, but you know, we're about to kick it off and I am just sitting here waiting for when my fave, Mr. Finnick Odair, shows up in his underwear. That doesn't happen in this book though. That does happen in Mockingjay though. I don't remember if they included that in the movie, but there is a specific part where Katniss and Finnick are in an elevator and for some reason, I can't remember why, Finnick is just in his underwear and Katniss has the thought, I just saw Finnick Odair in his underwear. Totally off topic, but that is something that'll happen when we get to that part in Mockingjay. Why that's one part of this series I remember distinctly and I can't remember other things, who's to say? It's just the way my brain works. But yeah, so I'm gonna call it a night tonight and we'll pick up reading this again tomorrow. I also just want to share the cover of this book like close up because this is a book that I literally like carried in every purse and backpack that I had in high school, and she's a little beat up because of it. I guess that's how you can tell this is a well-loved book. She is very well traveled. Hello. This is such a random aside, but I am editing part 1 of the Hunger Games reading vlog. While editing, sometimes I take little breaks, you know, drink some coffee, hop on Twitter for a couple minutes, that kind of thing. And I got on Twitter, and of course on my For You page, there is tons of stuff about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes movie. So there was this tweet that I saw, and it's about how Rachel Ziegler has been in not one, but 2 movies that have her character falling in love with a white man who only ruins everything in the end, only for her real life boyfriend to also be in the movie and just kind of be there in the background while it happens. And, you know, first of all, 2 times is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice in quick succession because it was West Side Story and then The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And what's also really funny is that when I saw that and they put her boyfriend's name in the tweet, and I was like, oh, I wonder who he plays in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because I have only seen one trailer for the movie. I haven't sought out any propaganda for the movie, mostly because I like things to be a surprise. So I try not to watch a lot of movie trailers in general for whatever movie I'm watching. Because also in like today's movie world, a lot of times they put the best parts in the trailer and then there's not really anything to look forward to in the movie. So those are some of the reasons why I don't really watch movie trailers. And so the only time that I have seen a trailer for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was before the Eras movie, because they still played previews before the Eras movie, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was one of them. So that was the first time that I had even seen anything about this movie. That's how I found out Viola Davis is in this movie. That's how I found out Peter Dinklage is in this movie. Up until that point, I did not know. So I also had no idea who Rachel Zegler's boyfriend was playing. And I looked it up. He's playing Sejanus. He is playing Sejanus Plinth, who Coriolanus Snow also screws over and also ruins his life. And so when I saw that and I saw who he was playing, it literally made me laugh out loud. And I just had to share that because President Snow just be out here ruining everyone's lives. But yeah, so that was just a thought that I had while I was perusing on Twitter. So I thought I'd share it because it is related to this. Alrighty. Good morning, everyone, from me and my very fluffy hair. So today is Friday, November 24th. It is Black Friday, but I will not be leaving my house if I can help it. I do have an online order that's ready to be picked up, but I don't even think I want to venture out into the world to do that right now. I might run out for something small, but there is no Black Friday shopping going on for me, and that's pretty much how I like it to be. I've never been a Black Friday shopper. I worked in retail, so I've worked Black Friday, but I'm not the type to fight crowds to get a good deal. Absolutely not. I'm much more of the type to sit on my couch and shop online deals. So that means that I just have a free day today. I am off work for the day. I don't have any plans other than I know that I want to finish this book and I need to continue to unpack and organize my apartment. As you can see, my books are still in stacks on the ground. Wallpaper hasn't been hung up all the way yet. So there's plenty of progress to be made for sure in just the cleaning and organizing of this apartment. But you know, all work and no play makes Kristen a dull girl. So we're also going to do some reading this morning. I am about halfway done with Catching Fire. I am on chapter 14, about 200 pages into the book. It's going well. They haven't even gotten into the arena yet. And I think aside from all of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes parallels that I'm seeing, I think the other thing that's making this reread a little more fun is that I forgot how the pacing of some of these books go. Like, I'm over halfway done with this book and the games haven't even started yet. So there's still a lot to happen in the last like 200-ish pages of this book. And yeah, so I think that I want to spend my morning doing a little bit of reading. To finish off this reading vlog, the goals that I want to hit today are to finish reading Catching Fire and watch the movie. According to the audiobook timer, I have a little under 4 hours left of this book, so I will definitely be able to finish it today. I will probably start out by reading the physical book on my couch. I've already moved my bookmark to where I was listening yesterday when I was driving home from Thanksgiving in the car. And so we will start with reading the physical book for a little bit until I get too overwhelmed / distracted with all of the other things that I want to get done in this apartment. And then we'll probably switch to listening to the audiobook so that I can feel a little bit more productive and clean while I listen to the book. It is now about 10 a.m. I have my cup of coffee here with me, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Already checking back in. I've been reading for like maybe 5 minutes, and I have some thoughts. So the point that I'm at right now is Peeta and Katniss are in the Capitol, or on their way there. I can't remember if they're actually there or not yet. In any case, Peeta and Katniss are basically doing film research like any athlete would. They're watching the videos of the old games to get a sense of what the other tributes that are going to be in this quarter quell are able to do. They come across Haymitch's Victor tape, and Haymitch was in the second quarter quell, the 50th Hunger Games. And so Katniss asks, is the person who won the 25th Hunger Games in here? And Peeta says, I don't think so. He rationalizes it by saying, maybe they passed away, and, Effie only sent us videos that are applicable to the people that we're going to be facing. So she didn't send us like extra ones to look through, which does make sense because, it's the 75th Hunger Games. So there would be 75 different tapes to go through if they watched every single one. So it would make sense for them only to have to watch 24 tapes rather than having 75 at their disposal. But after reading the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and knowing that the tapes and broadcasts of the 10th Hunger Games were completely wiped so that no one could see the Capitol being made a fool of, it makes me wonder if the 25th Hunger Games, which, if you recall, is the one where people had to vote on tributes. They basically had to nominate tributes and vote on who goes into the games. And I just find it interesting that that's one of the ones that isn't there. Because if anything, if they're going into a quarter quell, you would think that the other quarter quells would be ones that they would want to watch. Even if it's just to see what the Capitol has thrown at the tributes in past quarter quells, I still think that it would be beneficial to see the first quarter quell, especially because of all of the different, interference tactics could be a term. All of the things that the game makers do to sway the games. Things like the fire in the first book that drove Katniss towards the other tributes because she was getting too far away from everyone else. Or the mutations at the end of the first book that chased them all to the cornucopia. Things like that. And I would think that they get more creative in the quarter quells because it's an even bigger spectacle than the annual Hunger Games are. Even if you're not watching these videos for the actual tributes, because none of them are actually in the quarter quell this time around, you would still want to see what the game makers have come up with in the past, because that gives you an idea of the kind of things that they're capable of, what they've done in the past, and where they can go in the future. I just think it's interesting that one of the 2 existing quarter quell tapes is not in their possession. And it makes me wonder if that's one that the Capitol erased too. If they did it in the 10th Hunger Games and they weren't acting like it was a big deal to erase these tapes, makes me believe that it's something that they have on deck every year just in case the Capitol looks stupid so that they can erase all evidence of it. So yeah, that was just a little tidbit in Catching Fire that made me think of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It makes me wonder if the first quarter quell videos actually just weren't sent to them because it's not really applicable to what they're going to be doing, or if it wasn't sent to them because the record just doesn't exist. I also really think that that whole tidbit at the end of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I've heard is not in the movie, that they erase all of the tapes for the 10th Hunger Games, which I think is such a silly thing to take out, because that shows even more that dating even back to the 10th Hunger Games, the Capitol is already manipulating the media that people see. And if they're doing all of that 65 years before this book happens, then everything that Katniss is talking about in the beginning of the book with, what are their names? Twill and something. I'm so bad with names. The 2 girls that she finds in the woods beyond District 12, when they're talking about how, District 13 was never destroyed, and they just keep showing the same shots of District 13 with someone in front of a green screen, essentially, and that District 13 isn't destroyed, that there's possibly a whole group of people still living in District 13, and that the government's been lying to them this entire time. It just really solidifies that the Capitol's been lying to the entire country, the entirety of Pan Am's history, pretty much. If they are so willing and ready to erase the tapes of the 10th Hunger Games from history, that's not the first time that they've done that. They had to have done it before, done it many times, to where it is not only a common solution that they come up with immediately when the 10th Hunger Games happen, and it just makes it even more prominent that by the time Catching Fire is happening, this big house of cards of lies that the Capitol has been building upon for 75 years is finally starting to crumble. People are finally waking up and seeing that they have been lied to their entire lives, that the Capitol does not have their best interest at heart, that the Capitol does not really care for them. And honestly, as I'm going through this reread, it's making me like The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes more. It's little things like that quick sentence, like it wasn't even that long. In this whole exchange, when Peeta and Katniss are watching tapes, essentially, of past games, even Katniss says, we should watch it because we might pick up something valuable from how the games are played in the quells. And with them only having one quell to look at, you would think that if it was available, Effie would send them both of the quells for that exact reason. Because like I was saying, even if you're not facing that particular victor in the game, it could be useful to get an insight into how the quells are different from a regular Hunger Games, especially when Peeta and Katniss, the two tributes that are going into this quarter quell, have not been alive to see another quarter quell. Now that I'm rereading this part, and this is a part that I just read and then just didn't really think anything of the first time, but now that I know that the Capitol has erased games before, it just seems weird that Effie wouldn't send them both of the quarter quells. And another reason why it's weird is because if you noticed, she sent them Haymitch's tape. Haymitch isn't in the games. Haymitch is their mentor. So why would she send them Haymitch's quarter quell at all if that wasn't her reason? If the whole point wasn't to see how a quarter quell worked. And if that is the case, Effie would have sent both of them. Effie would have sent the 25th and the 50th if she had it available to her. But my money is on that they don't have it. That's kind of where I am right now. And I am not any further than I was when I first checked in. So let's keep reading. Okay, I swear I'm not just going to talk your ear off this entire time. I've made it one page and I already have other things to say. And I honestly think it's because they're watching the historical footage of old Hunger Games right now. So it's also kind of giving context to what else is going to happen in this book. And I don't think it's mentioned at all in the movies. I could be totally wrong, but I know for a fact that Madge was completely written out of the first movie. And I've talked about how that made me really sad because that is like Katniss's only other friend in District 12 besides Gale at the beginning of the movie. And there are two reasons why I don't like that they didn't include Madge in the first movie. One of them is because they took away literally one of her only other friends. And in the movie, they really lean into the love triangle. I could be wrong, and I know that there is more of Gale in Mockingjay, but in the books, the whole love triangle thing with Gale, to me at least, did not take nearly as much precedent as it seems to in the movies. In the movies, they make it seem like Gale is the only other person that she hangs out with and they're together like all the time, which they are together a lot, but no more than you would with any other friend. And since she wasn't mentioned in the first movie, I guess I'll just go ahead and fill you in. Madge is the mayor of District 12, Mayor Undersea's daughter. She is pretty much as well off as you can be in District 12 being the mayor's daughter, but her and Katniss become really close. And then it's revealed in Catching Fire that Katniss's mother was very close to not only Madge's mom, but also Madge's aunt, who is her mother's twin, and also gets reaped into the 50th quarter quell. And then there's this whole moment in Catching Fire where Katniss realizes that her mother, Madge's mother, and Madge's aunt were all very close. When Madge's aunt was reaped for the 50th quarter quell, where they had twice as many tributes as normal, there is a scene in the film that they're watching where she is embraced by two crying girls. One of them is her twin sister, and the other one is Katniss's mother. I've also talked about this a bit, and I do understand kind of why they change it in the first movie, but in the books, the Mockingjay pin was given to Katniss by Madge because it was her aunt's pin. The same aunt that was reaped into the 50th quarter quell. And so now, because I'm trying to remember the movie that I watched like 10 years ago, I'm trying to remember if Madge is ever even mentioned. I mean, I know that she is by the time they get to Mockingjay, but I don't know if any of this is ever mentioned, which, if that's true, then by the time you get to the Mockingjay movie, you don't know anything about Madge. And so I just think it's interesting because there are all of these like interconnected things with Katniss and her mother and the games and the quarter quells and all of this different stuff that I don't think is conveyed into the films as well. And that could be a thing with, internal dialogue that's going on in a book versus what you can portray physically on the screen. I know that probably adds in some complications and things, but completely taking Madge out of the first movie is something that I don't really agree with because it impacts the rest of the series, at least from this point of view. And it also kind of does her mother a disservice, I feel like, in the film series, because when her mother does actually talk about Maisie Lee Donner, who is Madge's aunt, who was reaped in the 50th quarter quell and ended up unfortunately not making it out because obviously Haymitch is the winner of the 50th Hunger Games. It's a moment in the second book that really humanizes Katniss's mother, and you understand more of why she is the way that she is. She clearly has like a lot of trauma surrounding the games and District 12 and what life is like in District 12 and violence in general, and especially her being a healer. I feel like Madge is a character that really didn't need to be taken out of the first movie at all. I think that she could have still been included. It is kind of cute that in the movie they changed the pin thing to be something that, Katniss got for Prim as a good luck charm, and then Prim gives it back to her. But that's not what it is in the book. And I think that the book version gives that Mockingjay pin more of a history, and it makes it make a lot more sense why it is the symbol of the rebellion in the end. Not that everyone who wears the Mockingjay pin knows the significance of that pin, but in the book, Katniss knows the significance of that pin. Katniss puts together that this is a pin that has seen a lot of carnage. And I feel like for her, that's why it becomes a symbol of the rebellion. It is this pin that has been in not one, not even two. It's been in like 3 Hunger Games. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking right now. It is already almost 11 a.m. and I've made it like 2 pages in. This is not going well. Alas, it's a reading vlog. We're here to talk about books. So I just got done with the part where they're watching Haymitch's games. And they talk about how, this arena that they built was absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. There's a meadow that stretches for miles with beautiful flowers. The sky is blue. There's puffy clouds in the sky. There's a beautiful woods and a snow-capped mountain. And then it turns out that everything in that arena is poisonous or venomous or carnivorous, and everything just wants to kill you. The mountain turns out to be a volcano, and it erupts, killing like 12 people. And it just adds to my theory that, they do special things for these quarter quells. And to be fair, Haymitch's games, they did have double the amount of tributes. So, having those like poisonous things and natural disasters and stuff like that, it's another way to, thin the pack some so that the games just don't go on forever. But if they've done that before, they will do it again. And that's why I would think it's really important for Peeta and Katniss to watch the quarter quell games specifically, because they do stuff like that. They make everything in that arena look beautiful, but it's going to kill you if you let your guard down. That's the kind of stuff that they do in these games. So that kind of just feeds into my theory that if there was a 25th Hunger Games to watch, Effie would have gotten that for them. So I am personally of the belief that the Capitol completely got rid of the 25th Hunger Games. And it's because of something that happened in those games that made the Capitol look very stupid, and they didn't want an archive record of it. So yeah, just feeding into my own delusions and theories right now. So yeah, let's continue. I'm on chapter 15. Okay, this may just be me being delusional. What else is new? But there is a part about 250 pages in where Katniss is getting ready for her interview with Caesar, and she asks Cinna, "What dress am I wearing tonight?" And he reveals that President Snow directed that she should wear the wedding dress that won the public vote. The night that the Quarter Quell was announced, they had this whole public spectacle broadcast thing about Peeta and Katniss getting married. They showed the potential wedding dresses and let people vote on what dress she should wear. Since she's now back in the Hunger Games, President Snow has directed that Katniss and Peeta wear basically their wedding outfits to the interview because they're clearly not getting married. And then this is the part that makes it interesting. Katniss talks about how this heavy silk dress with all of these pearls and gems on it, and, you know, Peeta's fine tuxedo with white gloves is what they wear in the Capitol to get married. And then she talks about what people wear in District 12 and what the District 12 wedding ceremony looks like. She talks about how the women usually rent a white dress and the men just wear their nicest clothes that are not mining clothes. But then she talks about the actual wedding customs of District 12. And she says that, you know, they fill out the paperwork, they go down the Justice Building, they get assigned a house. And then it's tradition to sing a specific song, which she doesn't name here. And then the couple builds their first fire together and breaks bread, essentially, to signify the beginning of their life together. In the book, it says, family and friends gather for a meal or a bit of cake, if it can be afforded. Even if it can't, there is always a traditional song we sing as the new couple crosses the threshold of their home, and we have our own little ceremony where they make their first fire, toast a bit of bread, and share it. She says maybe it's old-fashioned, but no one really feels married in District 12 until after the toasting. Now, if you remember, at the end of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, what do Lucy Gray and Coriolanus do when they run away from District 12? They go to the lake in the woods that has the abandoned houses around it. They build a fire, and then they start thinking about food. So the last words that Lucy Gray says to Coriolanus is about going and digging up some Katniss. And if I remember right, I'm pretty sure they had some bread with them. So this may be me being delusional, but that is a very specific ceremony in District 12. Lucy Gray's always singing, so I wouldn't be surprised if the song that they sing is a song that Lucy Gray sings in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's just not detailed in Catching Fire. But not only do they run away together, they enter a new house together, build a fire together. Lucy Gray has been singing to the Mockingjays, so the Mockingjays are singing to them, and there's music in the woods. I'm pretty sure they probably had some bread with them or some food of some sort. And I am not the type to believe in coincidences in book series, just because books are so planned out, especially like whole series are so planned out, that I just don't believe that that is a coincidence. I think that Suzanne Collins specifically brought back this concept of the District 12 wedding ceremony to really show how close President Snow was to completely altering the path of his life. They were essentially going through the traditional District 12 wedding ceremony, whether he knew it or not. And so I just think that's very interesting that that is mentioned in this book, and it's very similar to how the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes ended before Coriolanus decided that he doesn't need Lucy Gray. He doesn't need love. That power is all that he needs in his life. So yeah, very interesting parallel that I was not expecting, and then I read it and I was like, oh, okay. All right. So yeah, fun times. I also just want to talk about the symbolism of the Mockingjay and what good callback writing Suzanne Collins has. Because if you've read the Hunger Games series, seen the movie, it doesn't matter. You know about the Mockingjay. You may not know all of like the intricacies of how it was basically an accident in the Capitol. You know, they genetically engineered the Jabberjays for intel reasons, and then after the war just like let them go. Then they breeded with mockingbirds, and now we have Mockingjays. You may not know all of that stuff, But you know of the Mockingjay. You know how it is slowly throughout the Hunger Games series becoming the symbol of the rebellion, of the resistance, of everything that brings President Snow down. So even before the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, the Mockingjay was already such a huge symbol. And then the Mockingjays are very present throughout the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes too, the actual animals. But then you also get in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes young Coriolanus Snow, who even at the age of 18 already hates Mockingjays. Throughout the entirety of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, anytime they're brought up, he talks about how they're monstrous, they're an accident, they're not good for anything. And he basically kind of compares them to like rats, kind of talks about them like they're vermin, like they're bugs. And then you also have Lucy Gray, who for all intents and purposes is from District 12. Even if she is like not actually District 12, like they talk about in the book, how she's part of the Covey, which is like this nomadic type musical group that just happens to be in 12. Lucy Gray brings up the Katniss plant and how it's edible. And then to have 60 plus years later, after all of the Lucy Gray stuff, after the 10th Hunger Games, and having the Mockingjay and Jabberjays and like all of these capital engineered animals being so present in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, with Mockingjays specifically being referenced so many times. It's such clever callback writing to have 60 years later, have President Snow have these resurgences in his life of things like Mockingjays, Katniss, and District 12 being brought up to take him down in the end. And it, in a sense, kind of makes the whole fixation that Snow has on Katniss from the get-go make a lot more sense. Because I feel like in dystopian books kind of like this, there's always like, you know, the bad guy, which is usually like corrupt government or whatever. And they have this weird fixation with this one person who doesn't really seem like they can really do much. You know, in the first book, Katniss is from District 12, the poorest district. She is way underestimated and kind of gets lucky for a lot of the first book. And that's not to knock on Katniss's survival skills. She does have good survival skills, but there are several times where she is lucky to escape death in the arena the first time around. And I just think it's so interesting because, you know, it makes it make sense. So just think about it from President Snow's point of view. You know, the last time that you heard of all of these different elements together at the same time was when Lucy Gray was alive and was during the 10th Hunger Games. Even though he probably doesn't feel any remorse about it, I believe that Lucy Gray and all of these calculated decisions that he made in the 10th Hunger Games are still on his mind and still live in his brain when Katniss comes around. And then you have the reminder of Lucy Gray that not only comes just with the name Katniss, whether it be a plant or a person, but then you also have the fact that her symbol is a mockingjay, that she's from District 12, and the fact that she hunts in the same woods that he allegedly killed Lucy Gray in. And it just makes it make sense as to why he goes so in on Katniss. Even if he doesn't think that it's like some sort of conspiracy thing, I would be willing to believe that he has a knee-jerk reaction to anything related to Lucy Gray, let alone multiple things relating to Lucy Gray manifesting in one person, which is Katniss. And I think that it's really interesting because it kind of sets up Snow's downfall as poetic justice. Like, Lucy Gray is coming back and haunting him years and years later. He gets to the top and gets all of this power, and he is the president of Pan Am, controls the Hunger Games in his sick and twisted ways. He is then bombarded with all of these reminders of Lucy Gray, and he kind of loses the plot going after Katniss. And I think that a lot of his downfall comes down to his own issues with Katniss. he overextends himself. And I feel like he becomes so hell-bent on eliminating Katniss and getting rid of these last traces of Lucy Gray once and for all, that he makes mistakes and he underestimates Katniss and underestimates the rest of the tributes and the country. And ultimately it leads to his downfall. And so the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes really makes this series even better because it makes Snow's downfall more satisfying because it's like poetic justice that he is brought down by a girl named Katniss who is known as the Mockingjay, who leads a rebellion to topple his power. And for once, maybe the first time in President Snow's life, Snow does not land on top. And I just think that is so cool. I am like so invested and I still have a lot of this book to go and a whole other one to read. So yeah, these are the thoughts that are happening right now. I am completely in my own La La Land of delusions and fan theories. I am a one-woman fan theory show right now, so I hope you're enjoying because I feel like a conspiracy theorist. Hello everyone, it is Editing Kristen here. There are just a couple things that I wanted to say before we wrap up this reading vlog. So, my sincerest apologies that this video is a little late. I had full intentions of editing this and posting this video on time, but I ended up misplacing my SD card, which had like half of my footage on it. So I didn't find that until this morning, Sunday morning. So I edited this together as quickly as I could once I found my SD card. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was, for as long as this video is, this is not all of what I recorded. As you've probably noticed, there was nary a mention of watching the movie in this reading vlog, and that's because the rough footage that I had from this reading vlog was over 2.5 hours worth of footage. And even with editing down pretty much just the reading parts, it's almost 50 minutes long. So rather than post a 2-hour-long video where I just ramble on about all of my fan theories and delusions at you for 2 hours straight, I decided to split this video up into 2, and my intention is to upload part 2 of this reading vlog some point this week. I'm not going to wait till Saturday because I have all the footage and I have other videos planned for this weekend, next weekend, all of that. So rather than throwing off my plan of what videos I want to upload, I'm just going to give y'all a bonus video. So this reading vlog is going to be divided into 2, mostly because it was just too long for me to include everything into one video. And I would just edit out a lot of the stuff that I said, but a lot of the things that I said in this video and in the next half of this video are pretty much all things that I want to keep in. I don't want to cut out any of the parallels that I'm seeing because I think that they're interesting. And I would hope that you all would think that they're interesting, that other people that are fans of this series think that they're interesting. So I didn't want to cut out any of the actual substance of what I was saying. Usually there is quite a bit of rambling that I'm able to cut out, and I did cut out quite a bit of rambling already and things that I repeated, stuff like that. But even so, this video is still quite long, so I'm just going to split it up and give you guys some bonus videos for the rest of the Hunger Games reading vlogs, because I'm sure if I had to do this with Catching Fire, I'm going to have to do it with Mockingjay too. So I'm just going to keep reading, keep recording, and I will edit them into manageable size YouTube videos that will be coming out in the coming weeks. So just wanted to let you know that that is my plan for now, because I just have too much content that I want to put out there. And rather than waiting for a weekly upload, I'm just going to upload it throughout the week. So with all of that said, that does mean that we have reached the end of this reading vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed my, delusional fan theories, Pepe Sylvia style. At least I didn't put up like a whole map on my wall with red strings attaching everything. That's not saying that I won't do it in the future, because I'm having the urge to. I'm having the urge to make a full timeline of Pan Am with all of these different connections that I'm seeing. So I wouldn't put it past myself to do that in the future, but that is not what we're doing right now. So I hope that this video wasn't too fan theory like for most of you. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed talking about things that I'm passionate about, which this book series is one of the things that I'm passionate about. So just wanted to pop on here and let you guys know that that is the plan. I didn't forget about you. I just lost my SD card for a little while. I will be so happy when I am done unpacking and moving and there's not just piles of things around this apartment for important things to get lost in. So if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave a like down below. Let me know. You should also subscribe down there if you're not already subscribed. I do reading vlogs like this semi-frequently, and I would love to do more. So go ahead and join my little band of book nerds down below so that you can be notified whenever I upload my next fan theory based delusional rants. So that is it for me today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video.